Welcome to She Owns It, the podcast for women building businesses and lives on their terms. I'm Kristen McAllister, and here we talk about what it really means to own our direction, our decisions, and our life at every stage of our growth. Let's dive in. Hello, I am joined today with Morgan Ryan, managing partner at MBI Equity Partners. Morgan, thank you so much for joining me. For the second time, I'm excited.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, the first time we kind of talked a lot about your leadership journey and some of the transition you were going through. And it's been so much fun to have the opportunity to watch you the last couple of years through that transition from internal leadership to business ownership and the growth that you've gone through. So before we get there, I want to learn a little bit more about MBI Equity Partners.
Yeah, so I co-founded MBA Equity Partners with my younger brother, younger by 2 years, Andrew, and we are a private real estate investment company. We buy neglected apartment buildings in Southern California. We renovate them, make them beautiful, make them profitable, and return profit to investors, as well as tax benefits and many other elements. My brother and I started MBI Equity Partners because one, we realized we have incredibly complementary skill sets. We work very well together. And two, I was realizing all these benefits as a W-2 employee and given access to this investment opportunity that I'd never received prior. And it made me think that without my brother and without his expertise in real estate, he was working for 6 years, I would never have gotten exposure or access. So part of MBI Equity Partners and my kind of side passion project, in addition to improving communities, is really to give women exposure to investment opportunities like I was given.
That's incredible. So what made you step back and say, all right, I have access to these investment opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, brother. I'll say kid brother just to get at him a little. This is wonderful, but yeah, there's a business here. We're gonna go into business together, and here's what we're gonna do with it.
Mm-hmm.
What prompted that?
I would say I was at a place in my career where I felt like I was ready for a change and a new challenge. I never thought I would be someone who would be a business owner. Felt like there was too much pressure. I didn't want to be responsible for a payroll or anybody's livelihood. But I got to thinking, like, I have now enough experience where I'm confident enough to know how I would want to run a business, value-wise, organization-wise, accountability-wise. And at the similar time, my brother was also kind of looking for maybe something different. He is incredible at his job. So I really scored by securing him as a partner, but I also think he was ready to kind of go to this more principal side where you're an owner as opposed to a partner who supports an owner. So we kind of just talked about it, and then this came after we actually bought 2 deals together prior. So we kind of already had a trial run with how we work. Our parents were terrified because they did not want this to destroy the family. But, we proved that we were able to respect one another. I can tell him when I'm really grumpy and we don't have certain conversations at that time. I know when he needs a snack. So that part works really well. But so we had a trial run with those 2 properties. And then we got to a point where we just said, we're ready. Let's do it.
It's good. And what was during all that? She said, I really never wanted to be a business owner. That was not in the plan. Was there a time where you thought, what am I doing? This is crazy.
Yeah, well, such a good way to ask that question because I was a chief of staff for a large nonprofit supporting the executive team and the CEO. So I had access to all these incredible, incredible women, especially, and people. But I was working my butt off. I spent all of this time working for people that I cared about, obviously, and respected, but so much time was taken away from the people I loved the most, which is my family and my husband. And, and I was doing something that was meaningful, but it didn't have like that really true connection where I felt rewarded and fulfilled in a way that I do now. So, I got to a certain point in my previous job where I was looking for other jobs, and it's like, why am I going to go run a business for someone else? Or why am I going to go work for someone else in a similar way I was doing before? And I think that kind of realization really got to me, and I just felt so burnt out in doing that. But when it came to, okay, if I can set my own rules for how I wanted the values of my company to be, If I get to set my own schedule, which is still a normal schedule, but I control it, so it's different, right? And if I get to then work with my family, then I'm really checking all of my boxes, and then I'll have time to be there for the people that I love the most. I'll get to work with people I love the most, and every hour that I put into my business affects my bottom line.
It's so interesting you phrased it that way because it doesn't sound like there's a moment where you said, I want to own my own business. And then you laid out the steps in order to go own your own business. You laid out this picture of
Mm-hmm.
what you wanted in life.
Right.
And you said, here are the boundaries. Here's what it looks like. Now, what gives me that?
Exactly.
And then you and your brother and your expertise just fit into that beautifully. When you initially started out with this, did you have a picture of what success looked like?
Yes. When we first started talking about it, I have been around real estate my whole life. I've always been super interested in real estate, especially apartment buildings. Um, but like what does a successful investment firm look like? I've never really spent the time doing that. So my brother, though, has been exposed to a lot of this. We sat at his previous company's conference room with a massive whiteboard. I'm like, okay, if we had a magic wand, where do we want to be in 10 years? And he just started like throwing out, like we want 1 billion under assets in 10 years and 3,000 units, and we want to profit by this much. And I was like, great. That's our goal. Let's work our way back. And like, that's what I really love doing is let's set a pie on the side goal and then how do we actually execute? And so that's really, I mean, if we get there, do we have to get there to be successful? No. How I define success is what's going to afford my life. I want to get paid. I'm getting paid a little bit, but still not a lot right now. And I'm fortunate enough to be married in a relationship where my husband is, generously supporting us. But ultimately there is that financial freedom aspect as well. And so like that's the carrot, one of them. The other one is being fulfilled and validated in what I do. But it really was that pie in the side goal. Okay, now work our way back to what do we need to have in place to execute this? And then that really laid the foundation for how our business is today.
Love it. And where you're at today, I know this is only a couple years into it. You
Mm-hmm.
had to, and I remember those first couple of months, 6 months. So are you buying, building? You said, no, I need the systems in place yet.
Yeah.
I need them in place first.
Right.
And you really focused a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
Has that gone the way you planned, or are you breaking them right and left?
I think setting the systems in place was an incredible foundation. So one example that was a little hard at first, we decided to bring on an investment management platform. And this platform is $9,000 a year, which for a starting company is very, very expensive, especially when you have zero investors. But my goal with this investment management platform was it was a signal of credibility, right? If we had this very, very forward and seamless touch point for investors to interact with, then we seem much beyond our years. And so that has been something that investors have actually really complimented us on and appreciated how easy it is for them to interact with our business through that portal and that platform. So that's one system that's worked really well. In terms of like asset management and managing construction, I'm still doing everything in Excel. I built my own models, but I know that that's only going to last us for so long. So what is that next iteration? So we set enough of our systems in the beginning to now we're really getting to kind of evolve, especially now with AI. There's so many opportunities. And so part of me is also kind of waiting a little bit just to see how like different tools and different potential agents I could use to then build kind of that next phase. So yes, systems we really got to lean on. It made our lives so much easier. And now we just get to iterate, which is pretty fun, I think.
What are some things that you get to do on it when you look at it on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis?
Mm-hmm.
How many different things do you have your hands in?
Everything. I like to.
I get that.
Yeah. So my brother, because he was a broker for 6 years, he is the master when it comes to acquisitions. He knows all the he's very has a market expertise, knows a lot of the vendors, is a relationships kind of person. So that's his world, and I mostly support him. But my number one goal is to make sure that he doesn't have to worry about anything else so that he can focus his time on doing what he's excellent at. Because what he's excellent at is what brings in our deals that then we like if we get the deals that he brings in, then our business actually functions. So in a way, I want to make his life easier and not have to worry about the things, and then I worry about everything else. And granted, we still work together on a lot of stuff. He's my sounding board, nothing, we don't do anything in isolation, but that's kind of how we've separated enough to where it works.
What's one of the first things you're looking forward to giving up? You cannot get there fast enough because you want that off your plate will be the first hire.
So,
or the next hire, we'll say.
Well, bookkeeping is just so annoying for me. And we are running all construction in-house. So I'm buying all the materials and I'm paying all of our vendors. And that means for every single doorknob I buy, I need to record it. And right now we're using Excel because that's a more affordable option than buying QuickBooks for every single entity that we have. Example. So I'm really excited to find kind of that next stage. And we're trying a couple of things where we have our property manager pays certain things. So I'm not having to do the actual bookkeeping. We're looking into AI. We're looking into accountants out of state, out of the country. So we're just trying to find the most seamless option. But that is one where it's a lot of menial work, some data entry, and I also have this fear in the back of my head that I, missed a number or did something wrong. Because again, like bookkeeping is also not my expertise. It's just something that I've been exposed to over the course of my career, and now something that I'm doing.
What do you feel is that your expertise?
Oh man,
you're bringing because your brother, you talk a lot about and praise your brother, and there's all of his strengths.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those where you're complementing his weaknesses with your strengths?
I can execute very well. So I'm good with having a goal, setting the plan, executing the plan. So I think that's really where I come in. I have great attention to detail. Something that I've been able to contribute as well is just how we do investor reporting. Andrew has been in other investment opportunities before with other firms. And so we kind of use those as baselines for what other investors are receiving. And then my background, because I did a lot of board reporting, I worked with a lot of clients in my consulting days, I kind of understood that over communicating is actually better. And that concise is best. So we've gotten to kind of combine of like what with the how to communicate. And that's also been an area where we've really received a lot of compliments on is just how we communicate with investor reporting. So I think, okay, one is the execution component. And then the two is kind of my out of industry knowledge that we've gotten to merge with his expertise in space to really differentiate what we offer.
It's incredible, and we hear that a lot. Of industry expertise does matter, it doesn't matter. It's an ongoing debate with ownership and leadership. And we see that we're subject matter experts within their industry, do start a company, but they're missing the business side of it. And you come with the business side of it.
Exactly.
And you and your brother are learning some of this together, though he had the subject matter expertise, and you're bringing that together. Right? That curiosity factor that you're bringing, not knowing the industry from start, do you find that you're able to bring some new ideas or some new concepts, or maybe do it just a little differently than everyone else?
Absolutely. And it gives me an excuse to ask questions, which I feel like I almost need. In the past, I felt like, oh, I'm in a leadership role and I'm younger. Or in my first job, I was 23 managing 30-year-olds, and so part of it is I'm this young girl who should know things that I don't. And so I try to figure things out all on my own. I've really enjoyed this experience for many reasons, partly because I am new to this industry, I can ask questions maybe other people wouldn't feel comfortable asking. And also I can ask them in a way that might be confusing to others, because a lot of responses I get of like, why do we do things this way? It's like, oh, because it's always been done this way. So that for me is just a huge light bulb of like, well, it doesn't have to be. And because I'm not from your industry, I don't have to expect it to be that way. And so I think we've really surprised a lot of vendors that we work with just in terms of how we operate, because it's so different than how construction or traditional, I guess, real estate has operated in the past.
It's fascinating. You talk about when you were a young leader and you have all the answers. In business ownership, we really feel that same way of this time, but I own it. I've got to have all the answers. And you're coming at it from such a fresh perspective saying, no, I just need to figure out what questions to ask.
Exactly. And I would say once I realized that, Like this burden was just off. I felt so much more at peace, and I felt like I could be just more of who I am as like a human. Because I think that's another learning I had across my career was I don't need to be a robot. I actually got this feedback. Morgan, you're not a robot. You don't have to be,
Every morning, Morgan, you're not a robot.
you're not a robot. No, you don't have to be stoic. Like you can laugh, you can show emotion. It's okay. And I think I've also realized that once I started showing my personality and, who I was and that I'm kind and I'm curious, then I actually received a lot more engagement and respect, and people wanted to work harder for me just because they saw me, they liked me, and this sounds silly, but like they wanted to make me proud in a way. Because I mean, that's how I felt working for a manager that I really liked. Like if I saw someone I really respected and loved, I wanted to do everything I could to make their lives easier and make them happy. So I think I've tried to take a similar relationship in that way, where if I knew someone I like, I recognize their values and characteristics, and if I emulate them, then maybe someone will feel that way about me. And I've received reinforcing statements from people who've worked with that's worked. So I try to continue that.
You mentioned you had so many role models to emulate and learn from, some great mentors. Was there advice that you received early on that still it stays with you till to today?
Oh, I mean, one that has resonated with me. It's not a direct answer to your question, but in my first job, I worked in consulting, and in consulting, it's just understood that you work your butt off, you don't sleep, you travel all the time, and you kick butt. And you say yes to everything. And I loved my job. I learned so much. I got all the gold stars. Like I got promoted quickly. But the president of like my team sat me down and was like, Morgan, you're going to burn yourself out. Stop. Of course I didn't listen, but I did burn myself out. I lasted 2 years in that job. I had to move home. I stayed on the couch for 6 months and then like got back up and got my thing going again because I realized that work, while I got that endorphin hit, it's not my whole life. It's not everything I care about. I didn't necessarily want to have the lives of my bosses at the time, which was also something super insightful for me. And that's helped me then kind of structure and how I think about my career moving forward of I still want to be incredibly successful. I still want to be at the top of my game. I still want to kick butt, but I need to do it in a way that's sustainable, in a way that also is fulfilling. So while that wasn't, I mean, I guess it was advice in a way, but how I then took it and experienced it has really influenced me.
We'll just say it's experiential advice.
Experience.
I mean, look at it. When we're in our 20s, what advice were we given? Anyone saying don't work too hard, you're going to burn yourself out? That concept was so foreign.
Oh, yeah.
You're never going to take the advice until you find yourself curled up in a ball crying or laying on a couch in the dark.
Right.
Thinking, how am I going to get up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you look back, go, oh, is that what they meant by burnout?
Oh, exactly. And then also too, because it consumed my whole life, like that was my identity. So when I took it away from myself, I'm like, who am I? Am I valuable? Like, am I, all of these questions and things. And so it took a while to kind of piece myself back together in a way of like finding the different elements of me that weren't just work and weren't just those gold stars. But it was worth it. And it was a really good journey because I also thought about like what I valued in life. And was it number one achiever was the most important thing? No. And I had this weird cognitive dissonance where it's like my whole life I wanted to be double, triple A, all American, all these best things. And what I realized, like, no, progress is important to me. Freedom is important to me. But most importantly, my family and community are important to me. So like how do I still feel that achievement and progress, but then still make time for all those other areas of my life that are actually invaluable to me?
My mind's going as you talked about identity, and you've got all these things are important to you, and how do you align them? Mm-hmm. And I talk to so many business owners that their identity is wrapped up in their company. Mm-hmm. That is their identity, just as you're mentioning that first job was your identity. Mm-hmm. In starting this business, it seems as though you've learned all the lessons that many of us learn later on after owning a business.
So much to learn.
And you get to go in this with all those lessons learned behind you and say, nope, doing this on my terms, my way. How are you keeping your identity
Hmm.
while also owning a business? Because the business isn't owning you.
No, I'm trying not to let it, but I think because I designed, I'm trying to think how do I say it. Or we, my brother and I, but like I in my head designed this business to resemble who I am deep at my core. So like for me, it's not business and Morgan, it's kind of connected in that like the values that we reflect, but like I sit in one office with my brother. I'm sitting at his desk right now. You know, my dad is actually down the hall because he's been generous enough to like lease out a little office space to us. And so I see my family every day. And do we talk about work mostly? Absolutely. But then, there's other fun stuff thrown in there too. Um, when it comes to how we work with vendors and what we prioritize when we hire vendors, everything is very much aligned to what we value and prioritize in life. We try to, I don't know, like the people that we work with. And so when it comes, I'm trying to think of the best way to articulate this. The business, I don't feel like the business owns me because I am the business, or I feel like I own the business. I don't know if that was the most eloquent.
Interesting where you said you had you have framework that you put in place, both like operational but also value based
Mm-hmm.
for decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't step in and say everything revolves around Morgan.
Mm-mm.
You might be doing a lot of things right now and you're doing those activities, but they're going to be pretty easy to take them off and say, here,
Mm-hmm.
you just go run with this.
Right.
And please do it differently and better than me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's so you've got that initial framework versus stepping in and just building it, which is
Mm-hmm.
a lot of business owners do, is they end up building it around them and in their likeness
Mm-hmm.
versus having that identity, the value-based system, and the reasons why you're starting it seemed always at the forefront, including you said in your conversations with Andrew.
Yes. And I do want to add one component of that too. I think part of the reasons why I felt more owned by whatever job I had was because of the time, not just like office hours or time, but the time where I was subject to someone else's availability. Right. So like I am a big planner. I like to prepare, plan ahead, organize out, schedule my projects. So I was never an all-nighter person. I never procrastinated. Like I like to have everything done a week before so I could review at my leisure, And I worked with a lot of people who were the polar opposite, where I would be up waiting for, until 8 p.m., 9 p.m. to do a project that was due the next day because I was waiting for my manager or whomever to get me what I needed. And that caused me a lot of stress. So much so that stress led to me feeling like I don't own my life. Like I'm kind of feeling this burnout again. And these are jobs after my first job, my first consulting job. So in going to this new business, I knew that this time and the freedom to control my hours or to schedule meetings or just plan ahead so we're never down to the wire, that gave me a lot of freedom and airspace to just be and feel like I'm able to confidently run my business while still enjoying life or being relaxed and not stressed out. So I would say that's maybe the number one unlock for me of just being somewhat subject to someone else's time and availability versus me now planning that time and availability.
I've heard, as you're describing, I can look back on my career and I've heard a lot called the C word, which was always kind of a bad, dirty word as I was getting performance reviews or people describing with me, and it was out of control.
Oh yeah, I like control.
Control is not a bad thing. Can we please normalize it to be, whether I'm controlling my time, I'm controlling my workload, I'm controlling how I spend it and how much, or I'm controlling all of the elements so that what comes out of it is predictable. Can we just accept, embrace, and lean into? And I'm okay if you add the word freak after it.
Oh, I do it. I am one.
More than happy with that. That's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
So in some things that we want to keep and lean into them, in becoming a business owner, was there something where you had to develop it? That you hadn't quite gotten that before, that skill set, that mindset, and you needed to develop it as a business owner?
Um, Taking a chance on myself. So when we started our business, we work with investors. So investors invest with us in their deals. And that means they're not just investing in the deal, they're also trusting and investing in my brother and I. And a lot of that is reputation. That also feels like a lot of pressure. But also for me, it was confidence to actually go out and ask people or share, hey, this is what I'm doing now. Would you ever be interested in just learning more or investing? That was a skill that I had to develop because in the back of my head, I mean, I was confident in what I had achieved, but then having to go out and ask someone to trust you in this way with their hard, cold, earned cash was very difficult. And I'm still, working with that. But I think just that confidence in a new way, and I'm sure everybody who is in a startup and raising money have a similar experience where you're asking someone to take a chance on you. And sure you are when you get hired, but just the stakes are so different. And even with vendors, like I pay vendors and I give them a livelihood and, they're taking a chance on me that I'm going to be there the next day in the next project. So I think maybe I don't know if confidence is the right word, but maybe it is confidence about something that I'd never had to have confidence in before.
It's whether it's you're trying something new, because we're all going outside our comfort zones
Right.
in a number of different ways, especially as we built the business.
Right.
That comfort zone and having the confidence
Yes.
that because there's always, someone said recently, it was sometimes you just got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that can be mistaken for self-doubt or lack of
Mm-hmm.
confidence.
Yep.
Leaning into that core. You mentioned going out and talking to people. We'll
Yep.
circle back to something you mentioned at the beginning, and I'll put some information in the show notes on it. You've got an event coming up
Oh, I do.
that
Wait,
aligns so much with your passion.
yes. And I do. Can I say one more thing about the comfort zone
Yes.
thing though? Because working with my family, I'm always in my comfort zone. So being out of my comfort zone is an active choice and something that I have had to redevelop. So yeah, thank you for saying that. And it's so important. But yes, so event, I am working with this new organization called Educate to Execute. And it was founded in response to the statistic that out of all commercial real estate owners, only 3% are women. So this goal of the organization is to help more women actually get invested in commercial real estate themselves. And the organization provides education, it provides a community of experts partners to help women actually invest, and also provides opportunities to invest. So this event that's coming up will be a panel discussion with other women investors and other potential partners to women who want to invest to really share their stories, any advice for getting started today, what they wish they knew when they got started, how to balance investments with an actual full-time job, how to balance investments with your full-time life. And we're really just looking forward for the opportunity to, one, hear from these incredible women and also to meet other women who are looking to achieve the same goal.
And with you being one of those incredible women, and I love the concept, and you put just a little something in there that I'm going to pick up on because I want to make sure we hit on it, is, balancing your life, your business, your family. You have some decisions and some expansions coming up, not just with your business.
Yes.
That you're about to experience ownership and figuring out how to balance on a whole new level.
Yes. Yes, I'm pregnant. So I'm having a baby in June. Well, this is my first one. We're very excited. But yeah, it's led to all of these questions because I see a lot of my friends who have W-2 jobs, more traditional jobs, and they're getting this beautiful mat leave to share with their husbands or partners and take all this time off. And when I think about that, it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, this company is my first baby. I'm going to have FOMO if I just take 5 months off or how many months off. So, in kind of thinking about how this business is going to evolve, I'm very grateful in that a lot of what I do can be done from a computer besides some, I go to the properties weekly. I can bring my baby. So part of this is just like visualization for how I'm going to integrate the baby with my life. Part of it is how are we going to manage, because my husband also works, how we're going to manage us both working. with childcare, how we're going to manage also spending valuable, incredible time with our baby. And I think sitting on this side of it before birth, I'm like, I can do it all. But I also know that when the baby comes, everything may change. And so I'm just really trying to keep an open mind. My brother has been very generous too, of like, just let me know how I can help you. For Christmas, he got me a really great work from home setup so that I feel great working from home. Yeah, so we're expanding. We'll see. I'm excited, but also, I don't know, I think part of, and I'd actually love to hear your perspective on this too, is, with investors or with vendors, and I'm here having a baby, do a lot of people have the assumption that, oh, well, now the business is going to fundamentally change, or that Morgan is no longer going to be involved because there's a baby in the picture?
My son's now 13, so
Yeah.
we're talking 13 years ago. I don't think there was ever a question, and maybe because I owned the business at the time, there was ever a question that, well, who's going to take over the business? Who's going to do this while you're out? Who's going to do that? I still tell, it was way back when, being in labor in the hospital room and processing payroll. You just get it. You just get it done. That's it's where you at. It's where you are at with the business, where you are at with your family, and leaning into where you're at.
Right.
Because on any given day or week, you may be in a different spot, and your baby's going to grow in so many different ways. They grow so much week by week, and you would have to adapt to that. So that adaptability and flexibility, and yours and my propensity to plan things out.
Right.
You just lean into every single day. This is where I'm at today. It's not where I shouldn't have been here. I should have been somewhere. Nope. This is where I'm at today. And when you laid out such a beautiful picture of here's why I'm starting this company, so that I can have room for this, and I can have capacity, and I can control where I spend my time, and you can control the growth of your company.
Yes, very true.
Around that, there's so many things that, and then you realize the intentionality when you put that picture together and brought it up. And there's sometimes I asked about, what did you need to develop as you go through this next phase or season? Be open to, what am I going to need to give up and let go of? And not necessarily activities or roles and responsibilities, but just that picture we have in our head, or that tendency to be this way.
Yes.
Be very open to what you have to get when you went from an employee to a business owner.
Right.
You probably gave some things up.
Oh, yeah.
Stability.
Yeah, salary, benefits. Oh, yeah.
But also in how you lead. Because it's somewhat different at that point. Oh, I'm excited. There's absolutely no doubt in the person that you are. And you mentioned, as you laid out, your authenticity, and you leaned into your authentic self, that you're just going to carry that through into motherhood. So I'm very excited for that. And the next recording, we may just have a little, either a baby sitting there, and we'll do an update, and your hair is disheveled, and there's absolutely no makeup, or they're screaming in the background, and we're going to say, this is where we're at today.
I love it. And we'll lean in to
and you lean into it, because it goes by so quickly. And on that, I want to do kind of a rapid fire round.
Okay.
This is going to be the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Absolutely. First thing, I'm just going to go through and prompt it with one or two words, and you tell me what comes out.
Okay.
Capacity comes from?
Desire.
I love it. Freedom is?
Time.
Ownership is?
Time.
One thing I wish more owners knew is?
It's okay to be yourself.
And right now, I'm owning?
Getting out of my comfort zone.
And you've got your family there to support that.
Too, yes.
So Morgan, thank you so much for your insights and your openness and all that you've shared. For those of us who have been through it or are going through it with you or are looking at going through it, I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other. And where you had some amazing mentors at one time, now you have such an opportunity to go do that through Educate to Execute, through business ownership, motherhood, and all that is to come. I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for putting this amazing podcast together, because I know there's going to be so many valuable conversations that I'm excited to listen to.
Thank you. And thanks so much, everyone, for joining on She Owns It. If today may have sparked something, gave you a new idea, or something you can take action on, don't let it sit. Share it, use it, and keep growing. Keep leading with clarity and confidence, because you never know whether you're inspiring yourself or those around you. Thank you for joining.
If today's conversation resonated, share this episode with a woman who's building something she cares about deeply. Remember to subscribe and like the episodes that resonate most with you. Until next time, keep owning your choices, your direction, and your definition of success. I'm Kristen McAllister. Thank you for listening.